Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Path to Profit podcast. I'm your host, Brad Dobson, with my co-host,
Dr. Minette Riordan. Super excited to bring you another episode of the Path to Profit podcast. And today we are talking about one of our favorite topics, time management. And Brad, I think it's one of our favorite topics because it's still something that we both struggle with. So I think it's an ongoing battle that creative entrepreneurs face, is how to manage their time without feeling like they're sacrificing their creative play as well.
In fact, it's such an important part of what Minette and I teach, is that Minette wrote a book about it.
Oh, yeah. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a copy of the book. I'll grab a copy of the book. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can find it on Amazon.com. It's called Instant Insights, a time management system for creative entrepreneurs. And Brad's right. In my first book, The Artful Marketer, there was a section on time management. And as I started working with more and more creative clients, I realized that time management is something that we all struggle with. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that is. So today we're going to share some of our favorite strategies and also some of our personal struggles with time and some of the things we've done to try to have time working for us and not feeling like it was working against us.
Yeah, so maybe we'll get started with sort of the big why parts of things. And Minette walked off screen. Oh, there she is.
I did. I
went to walk off screen on the podcast.
I went to get a copy of the book. I know they can't see it on the podcast, but they can see it on YouTube.
There it is. When did we publish that? This spring or fall or
yes,
winter?
In celebration of our 20th wedding anniversary. So I got to find something to celebrate for next year, Brad. So last year I published The Artful Marketer for my 50th birthday. This year we published the time management book for our 20th anniversary. I don't know, maybe you'll have to do another Ironman and I'll publish another book while you're doing your Ironman.
Well, I guess we can talk about that. Maybe that would be part of our big why, Minette, which is something we're going to talk about as it relates to time management.
Yeah, so, it's so funny. Brad and I were out for a walk this morning. It's one of our favorite things to do and how we start the day. And we do a lot of brainstorming and planning for our business while we do that. So it's actually one of our time management strategies and our brainstorming strategies is to walk together. And of course, we live in beautiful Santa Barbara, so it's really a gorgeous place to walk. We can walk to where we can see the beach, and we also walk along just below the mountains. It's pretty stunning. And I've been reading a lot, and I love audiobooks. I've been listening to a lot of books. I'm reading Randy Gage's Mad Genius right now, and Brad and I have been listening on and off to a book called Legacy about the New Zealand All Black rugby team. Not a book that I would normally be attracted to, but it was a book group pick for my business book group. And in it is this concept of being connected to what really matters most to you, being connected to the impact that you want to have in the world. And so when people say they're struggling with time management, what I often find is that they're not connected to the part of their business that really motivates them and gets them excited. And it makes them excited to continue to work towards their goals, even when it feels really hard. It gets us out of bed in the morning. I remember sales training one time where the sales training tip was to get out of bed every morning, to put both your feet on the floor, to clap as loud as you could and say, it's going to be a great day. And I think that attitude of being connected to our why can help us feel like every day is going to be a great day. So if you're struggling with time, I might ask, what's missing in your life right now?
Yeah. And sorry, I got distracted by a phone. My brain went away. And I guess when you were talking about that, I got to thinking about my own personal big why, especially for the Path to Profit Academy. And maybe it's an exercise that I need to go through again. I know that I'm excited to get up in the morning and puzzle out how to make a business work. I'm excited about getting online and doing it digital marketing. I'm also excited about the things we talked about this morning on our walk in terms of how we help people, how we're helping other entrepreneurs, other creatives bring forth their creativity into the world. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about how that translates, how we translate that into time management.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I think when we're deeply connected to our core values, for Brad and I, that's a big part of it. It's a big part of what we always teach to our client, is that making sure that you're building a business that's in alignment with all of who you are from the inside out. And when you do that, excuse me, it makes it easier to set goals. And it sounds so sort of maybe banal, and you hear about goal setting and how important it is. But the truth is, if there's nothing that you're working towards, nothing specific that's really driving you or motivating you, it's really hard to stay in action. And Brad, that reminds me, we were going to start with a quote, and then we got going talking about time management, and I totally forgot to start with a quote. So I was interviewed by Neil Ball on his just really awesome podcast, The Entrepreneur's Way. Last week, it'll air a little bit later in September. But something cool that Neil does is that he starts every episode with a quote. And I told Brad, I'm like, oh, this would be really fun. And I found a quote. And now's a great time to share it. And the quote is that action is the antidote to despair. Action is the antidote to despair. And that's a quote from Joan Baez, the American folk singer. And what the connection is between action and time management is that it's so easy to get into overwhelm. And if we don't know where we're going, we don't know what steps to take. And so knowing where you're going can allow you to either intuitively or practically determine a specific action step. And what I've noticed is that when you're stuck in overwhelm and chaos and everything just feels crazy, if you just take one action step towards your goal, it shifts everything and shifts your focus. And Brad, I would love for you to share a little bit. And so for those of you who know or who remember, Brad just quit his corporate job of 20 plus years in January of 2016 to come work in our business, the Path to Profit Academy, together. And I watched him struggle for a couple of months. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and I know that this is something that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs that are transitioning from corporate to working to themselves. Would you share, Brad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's just when you're in the structure of a day-to-day job and a bi-weekly paycheck, it's always very clear, and you have management and teams and other things that provide a structure and a plan forward, and you know what's coming up. You know what your targets are in terms of tasks to be done, and there's always leeway if you're not getting stuff done or if you're doing extra stuff, that type of thing. And so I've been living in that world for 20 years, like Minette said. And when you get home from the day of work, it's unstructured time. That's not to say I haven't been working from the house. I've been telecommuting for a long time, but I always had that thing in my head in terms of an actual structure of a business, and my team was relying on me, and so on and so forth. And it was difficult to transition into, okay, here's a free-form business. We have a lot to do. It's all self-directed. I don't mind self-directed, but it was very easy to become overwhelmed by the number of tasks, what the priorities are. And I think, obviously, the big why speaks to prioritization as well. And just how to slice up time to continue to work through those things, make sure the priority items are getting done, and somehow pick away at the big hairball that is a home business or an entrepreneur's type of business. And I think I'm finally getting there. Of course, I threw another wrench into the plan, which was a building amount of Ironman training. That sort of built from 6 to 10 hours a week in the beginning of the year up to 20 hours a week in July. And, 20 hours a week of training time, plus the tiredness and all that type of stuff. It was very hard to be on top of everything. And frankly, the business suffered because of that. So yeah, a lot of struggles, and I really hear you if you're out there as someone who's just getting out of their corporate job. Time management is going to be critical for you to have that structure and make sure it doesn't all just turn into coffee shop time chatting with your friends or training time, like in my case, or playtime.
Yeah, it's so true. And so I know that we're going to share some of our strategies that we share in the book with you on the call. But one of the things that Brad did, and he and I both love visual processes. We do it very differently. He's a techie, I'm not, but he created this beautiful mind map or flow chart in order to just capture all of the tasks that needed to happen. And plus, Brad, I think just acknowledging the learning curve, that going from one industry to another, that part of the overwhelm came from there was so much new information. And when we're entrepreneurs, not only are we trying to deliver our gifts and talents, but we're also learning business literacy. We're learning how to run a business, what business foundations we need to have in place. We're learning about all the marketing systems that need to happen. So when you're a new business owner in particular, it's such a challenge. I think it's one of the reasons why Brad and I love our live 3-day event that we do, The Path to Profit, Design Your Roadmap to Success, because it really helps people start to get a grasp, a visual system in place for seeing what that looks like. And so, Brad, I'm curious, was there software that you used to create that mind map that you would recommend to people, or did you just kind of create it by hand?
Yeah, I had found FreeMind, freemind.org. It's a Java program, works on most systems. And I had found that back in my software days and loved it. Minette's a pen and paper type of gal for mind maps. I love FreeMind. When you get really good at it, you can use the keyboard completely. You don't have to mouse around. You can add colors where you want or not, fold things up, expand them out, publish it as a list. But yeah, get that at freemind.org. You shouldn't have any problem installing it, but you can get somebody to help you install it for you. I'm a big fan of mind maps. It's an incredibly effective way. The reason I need it is because I just add more and more balls in the air in terms of items in my head that I know need to get done until I cannot function. I just sit on the couch like a vegetable because I'm overwhelmed by it. And when I have a mind map that I can dump all this stuff into in an unstructured format, that gives me a chance to prioritize, get it out of my head, and actually schedule things on my calendar. I should also mention, I forgot the other thing that I added when I quit my job and started with this was a full certification course from Digital Marketer, their certified digital marketer professional program. And so I was trying to do the business stuff and take a big course at the same time. So yeah, lots of
There's a lot, big learning curve, a lot going on. And so Free Minds is a great one. On the iPad and iPhone, Simple Mind is one that's fun and colorful as well. So mind mapping is a great tool, and it's one that we share about in the book. But the next strategy that I want to talk about, and Brad and I had fun with this one, it's both very insightful and maybe a little bit horrifying sometimes, and it's to conduct a time audit. And what I mean by that is to literally take 7 days and minute by minute in either 15 or 30-minute increments to track your time, to see what activities you're spending your time on. When I have clients that come to me and they say, I'm not making any money and I'm working in my business a lot, if we look at what they are spending their time on, like what specific activities they're spending their time on, they're often spending a lot of time in their business, but not on the money-making activities. And Brad did this, and he shared it. We have a time management course based on the book. And you want to share what you discovered when you did the time audit?
I don't really want to share it. It's
all about vulnerability, baby.
Yeah, I struggle with television time and social media time. Let's put it that way. So, and it's something I recognize about myself, and a time audit showed that in very stark terms, just how many hours a day and a week we're going towards that type of nothing time. It's not to say you can't be on social media or you can't watch television, but you really do need to step up to the plate and remember that you're in business, just happen to be in business for yourself. And that type of time is taking away from opportunities to sell.
Yeah, it's so true. Another book, I probably mentioned it on the podcast before because it's had such a big impact on me personally this year, is The Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler. And in one of the chapters in there, Steve Chandler specifically talks about how entrepreneurs have this mistaken belief that they don't have to work when they leave their corporate jobs, especially. And the truth is, you often work harder in the beginning. And he said, you have to treat your business like a business. He said, it's like any other blue collar or white collar worker. You got to go to the office at 8 o'clock and you got to have the conversations. And I don't care if you go to the office at 10 o'clock or you go at 12 o'clock and work until 8 p.m. It doesn't matter when the hours are that you work. But from a marketing success perspective, you got to put in the time. And there was a couple of years ago when I had been to this live event, and I don't even remember what the activity we were doing, but we were talking about time and we were talking about our business. And I had this huge aha realization that I was not fully committed to my business. And at the time, I realized that I felt like I was running my business like a housewife, meaning I wasn't taking my business seriously. I wasn't on the road traveling to events. I wasn't looking for speaking opportunities outside of my community. I wasn't doing the things that I knew that I needed to do, in part because I felt like it was going to take me away from the family. And so Brad and I had a conversation about it, and he helped me commit. He gave me, I don't want to say permission, but he gave me his blessing and said, we got this. This is where we're putting our time and energy and focus as a family. It's similar to doing the Ironman, right? Where it's the whole family has to commit to this. It takes time to grow your business.
Yeah, you do have to be committed to it. I think I like the word hobby more than housewife. I think maybe people misinterpret what you mean there, but I definitely get the point. And I've been there too. It's very easy to, especially here in Southern California, to head to the beach when it's only a mile away and things like that. And what I'm getting better at, I think, is if you watch me, you might not think that I'm putting in the time. I just spread out that work time over a longer period during the week, and I'm very flexible about my schedule. That said, I still need to put in more time on the business, more effective time on the business.
The flexibility is what we love. And yeah, no offense to housewives intended, but it's about making a choice. Right? If you're going to be a housewife and fully embrace that and enjoy every single minute of it. And if you're going to own a business and build a profitable business, then commit. It's also okay to have a hobby business, but just be really clear. So in my head and in my language, I was saying that I was building a profitable business, but in my actions, I wasn't fully committed. So just noticing the choices that you're making about how you spend your time. And that's where a time audit can be really helpful. And so I think the next strategy we want to share is once you do that time audit, you really have to tackle what I call your time eating gremlins. Were they email, Facebook, television, volunteering? Ask Brad, when I started my publishing company in 2002, I did so much volunteering. I belonged to 4 chambers of commerce. I ran multiple groups. I would show up and volunteer just about anywhere anybody asked me because I thought, and it did, it ultimately helped increase the visibility of my business in my community. And it was a parenting magazine. Visibility was everything, but also it wore me out. And it took time away then from either working on the business or spending time with my family. So it wasn't necessarily the best money-making activity for my business. So just noticing what's taking up your time and starting to back off. It's like establishing any other habits. Don't go cold turkey, but just put some systems in place.
I think one of the things, I just kind of realized this as you were talking about it, and those time-eating gremlins, and this is something Minette and I have been trying to bring more of into our lives, is intention.
Yes.
And the thing about social media, television time, volunteering, is maybe they're not intentional. And when you're doing things that are unintentional, that are just kind of mindless, not to saying volunteering is bad, but did you actually take the time to think out whether they were part of your strategy, whether they were going to help your business, help your marketing, help your sales, something toward, are they actually an intentional effort towards your bottom line? When I spend an hour flipping through Instagram, there's very little of that that's actually intentional. It's just mindless, and I'm not putting in any effort towards the business. So something to think about related to those gremlins.
Yeah, totally. And it's one of the, sorry, my allergies are bugging me this morning. It's one of the other things that I talk about in the book that I'm really passionate about. And I'm always excited when I hear other people say this too, because then I don't feel quite so crazy. And you may think I'm crazy for saying this, and I've said it for years to Brad because I watched him struggle with this, and that's to tear up your to-do list. Just absolutely tear up your to-do list. To-do list.
But I like to-do lists.
I know, but you make that giant to-do list on Saturday morning, and it's so overwhelming that you end up sitting on the couch watching football, not doing any of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right? And so, I probably, err the opposite direction where I forget to write things down that need to get done. And so what's the happy medium, and why don't to-do lists work? So to-do lists don't work because they aren't prioritized. They have too much on them, so they create overwhelm. And they're often written for creatives in too many places, and you can't keep track. This would be my personal challenge with to-do lists, is that I have way too many of them in too many places, and they're not organized at all. And so whether you're using sticky notes or 3 different journals, or you have a calendar and a journal, and then you've got notes in your phone, and nothing systematized. So just noticing what your process is for capturing information is really important. And one of the things that Brad and I both love to do, Brad does a lot of journaling. I love to do brain dumps, where I just get a big, fun, cheap sheet of kids' drawing paper and just get everything that's in my head on a big piece of paper. I did it this weekend. I cleaned out my office. I've been traveling a ton the last pretty much all year long, and I'd had things piled up in events I'd said I was going to, and different pieces to follow up on with people, business cards. And so I literally got a big sheet of paper and just started making a list of everything that needs to happen. Once you have all the information out of your head and can see it, this is Brad's same concept as the mind map, then you can start to prioritize it. Another reason that to-do lists don't fail don't work is because we often have both our personal and our business activities on the same lists. And part of treating your business like a business is to segment. Even though you work from home, I'm sitting here in my office craft room. Brad's in his office. The kitchen is right there, full of dirty dishes. It would be easy to take time out and go do the dishes or go work on the laundry, but we don't. We treat our business like a business. And even though we're working from home, we're pretty structured. Before my workday this morning, it was the first day of band camp. I was finalizing paperwork and writing checks, but it was all before the work hours. So Brad, I know I'm just kind of rambling on. I get really passionate about this concept because I see how much it overwhelms people and sets them up for failure instead of success.
So maybe we can talk about that step then, from instead of having to-do lists or tearing up those to-do lists, how we can use a plan and and even a daily set of individual items, what you call a daily big 6, to replace those or maybe not replace, but make them more effective.
Yeah, so great question. So pretty much everything on your to-do list has value. We're not saying that they don't, but not everything has equal value. Making sales calls and buying cat food should not be on the same to-do list. They have different impact. Although if you have a cat like ours who's really picky about food and really vocal when she doesn't have any, buying cat food might take the priority over making sales calls some days. But for the most part, we tend to mix up things. We do the ones that are easiest, least painful, least stressful first, and they aren't necessarily the ones that are going to move us forward in our business. So Brad talked about setting intentions, and our to-do list can have that same impact, where we literally set no more than 3 to 6 intentions for every single day that are going to move us forward in either our life or our business. This is a little bit separate from the to-do list. You're going to have one place where you have all those just things that need to get done. But what are the big rocks on your list every day that you commit to doing before you go to bed at night? these are the ones that when you take consistent action and do them every single day, they will create massive momentum in your business or your life. So whether you want to train for an Ironman, whether you want to lose weight this year, or whether
don't train for an Ironman.
Don't train for an Ironman. Don't say that. So just don't do it right after you just did one. So it's just, or whether you want to get 3 new clients this month, there's specific actions related to getting 3 new clients this month. And so not putting things on your list that are big either, that require multiple steps. The more, especially for creatives, that we can. Oh, Brad, I think an Oriole just flew over. Sorry, I'm looking out at the mountains in total squirrel distraction.
You literally had a squirrel moment in the middle.
That was in our time management talk. This yellow bomb just flew right in front of my big picture window here. But the more that you chunk projects down into baby steps, the more you will get done. I think it's the other thing that really we struggle with. Like Brad might say, create a lead magnet. Well, to create a lead magnet requires 1, both of us, and 2, a bunch of different steps. So it's really, when he talked about priorities, it's like, what's the first step? And so for us, we have a really fun lead magnet we created that's a healthy marketing quiz. It's an assessment you can take to see if you have all your marketing basics in place for your business.
PathToProfitAcademy.com/quiz.
Yes, PathToProfitAcademy.com/quiz. Total free, shameless promotion plug there. But the trick is to chunk it down into baby steps. So the first step to create a lead magnet might be just to brainstorm topics, and that might be one of the items on your big 6 for that day. So it's keeping it simple, it's keeping it impactful, and it's keeping it super intentional. So that kind of answer your question, or anything you want to add, Brad?
I think so. So how do so I've got this big 6, and I think I read about this in like something that CEOs do or something like this.
Yeah.
They just have a specific short list of things that absolutely have to get done. Other things can fall off. Anything else can fall off, but those things absolutely have to get done for that day. So what's an effective way for people to get that out in front of them? I know I use Google Calendar, and I also have a notepad that I write things in. I'm not as good about Google Calendar, but I do have a tendency to write my day's worth of items that I'm trying to work through, or the week's worth, the main focus for the week. But what are some effective ways for people to tie this together, especially creatives, so that it's effective for them?
So a couple of different things. So there's ways to tie it together emotionally, visually, and then practically as well. So when we're looking at what that big 6 is, we want to make sure it's connected to our big why, right? Everything is related. So it might seem like we've been, kind of talking all over the map today, but really there's a system here that starts with your big why, getting your goals in place, seeing where you're spending too much time, and then getting really intentional about how you choose to spend your time. Time management is really pretty simple when you make choices that move you forward. And so when you have that great big to-do list, and you've maybe done your big brain dump, or you've gotten all the different sticky notes and put them all in one place, there's a couple of questions that you can ask when you're looking at your to-do list. You can ask, is this mine to do, or can I delegate it? Is it mine to do, or can I delegate it? Like, there's a check sitting on my desk. Well, that's not mine to take to the bank. That's Brad's job. So it gets walked from my desk to his desk so that he does that. So one, I just delegated that check that needs to go to the bank. I've got a stack of shredding that needs to be done. That's an easy job for one of my kids to do. So it can get delegated. It's still an important piece that needs to happen. So you can also ask, when you're looking at your to-dos, is it going to move you closer to your goal or further away from your goal? Is it going to move you closer to your goal or further away from your goal? And then finally, are you really committed to doing it? How many times do we have things on our to-do list, like clean out the closet or my kitchen cupboards? And really the truth is, it's been on there for 6 months and it's just not going to happen. We've been in this house 4 years. Paint the kids' bathroom has been on the sort of mental to-do list for 4 years. So I don't see it happening. So maybe it's time for us to either let it go, live with it as it is, or hire somebody else to do it, right? So looking at Are you really going to do these things, and are they going to move you forward? And then from there, as Brad knows, he's heard me talk about this a lot, I love time blocking. Time blocking is where you take everything, those big 6 items you created, and if 6 feels like a lot, it's okay to only have 3 on your list. In fact, Brad gave me, one time when I had the magazine, gave me this awesome book called Organizing for the CEO. And one of the things they did was their inbox was, not their inbox, but their paper inbox was always really empty and never had more than 2 or 3 things in it. They never scheduled more than 1 or 2 meetings a day because they knew they were going to get interrupted. So claim time in your calendar by blocking chunks of time to work on your business. So maybe you don't go to work with other people for coffee meetings or appointments or phone calls or whatever it is that you need to do physically out in the world until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So you get your marketing and sales tactics done first thing in the morning. Maybe your best creative time is actually 8 to 10 p.m. That's true for a lot of my clients. They love to work at night. Well, if that's true, then you need to make sure you're getting enough sleep and you don't start your workday till later in the morning.
I think those, it's important to say that those blocks aren't detail blocks.
Correct.
These are not super granular individual to-do list item blocks. These are more granular, multi-hour, well, literally blocks that you're going to fit a sort of similar themed activities into. So you might have a 2-hour marketing block where you know that this is the right time for you to work on specific types of marketing, or you might, like Minette said, have a creativity block that's quite often, which is maybe it's 5 hours a day for you, which is fantastic if that's the type of creative work you're in. But you have that carved out of your schedule. Actually, 5 hours is probably too long, but
no, it's not. How long did I spend painting that little library yesterday?
Right, but it's hard to carve that out consistently. So yeah. Be realistic about that. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that those are buckets that you can use for that type of time and not other things. So you need to trust that that's you. By using those blocks effectively, you're getting the right amount of hours for different major parts of your business. In finances is another one. They don't go away. You need to spend time on them. So you need to carve out time blocks. I use, we've mentioned it before, the Profit First mechanism. It's the book Profit First by Michael Michalowicz, where I do finances on the 10th and 25th of every month, plus once a quarter. So they're big blocks, but they're scheduled as blocks in the calendar.
One of my mentors used to call them profit projects, and I love that. So whether it's sales calls or creating content for your blog or designing a book, whatever it is that you're working on, creating a webinar, it's all a profit project. They're all things that lead directly to making money in your business, which is what the whole context of this podcast is about, is how do we get on the path to profit and stay there? And managing your time is one of the most important aspects of getting on the path to profit. And it's one of the ones that I've struggled with most in my business. When I had my publishing company, it was so easy. My deadlines were obvious. And yes, I was still a procrastinator. And yes, I still struggled with time management, but I knew when things were due. I knew when deadlines were. I knew when I needed ad copy. I knew when I needed articles. I knew when I had to get the files to the printer for printing, et cetera, et cetera. And when you have your own business, it can be a real challenge. There's nobody telling you that you have to do a webinar on the second Tuesday of the month, or that your newsletter has to go out every Wednesday. But what I can tell you for certain, and one of the things that I have learned about marketing success and getting on that path to profit, is that consistency in your marketing matters more than anything else. That the more consistent you are, the faster your business will grow. And creating that list of daily big 6 intentions, or your big rocks, whatever you choose to call them, your 6 hats you're going to wear that day, 6 activities, action items, there's lots of different names for them. But the more consistent you are in taking action, the faster your business will grow. And I cannot say it enough that the biggest reason I see businesses fail is because they are very inconsistent in their marketing activities in particular.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for us. I can tell you, and we're going to have this in the show notes as well. We have a fun course. It's a 10-week course for time management. I don't have the link in front of me. It'll be in the show notes for this episode, for our time management episode. It's just $47 or something. It's real cheap, but that along with the Facebook group, people are having some really good success going through those lessons. And it's some of the things that we talked about, or all of the things that we talked about today. Once again, another great intro to that is Minette's book, what did we call it?
Time Management System for Creative Entrepreneurs.
That's right. I'm stumbling here, but I should have prepared that more. You can find that on Amazon. It's a fantastic introduction, and there's also a link to a course out of that. And if you think that what you heard here today was useful and you want to dig in more, these are things that we go over in our 3-day summit as well. And Minette teaches more about this. We'd love to see you in Santa Barbara, beautiful Santa Barbara, in September for us for a 3-day event. It's a nice time to get a little time on the beach after the summer, revamp what you're doing to get through the remainder of 2016 and get back to those targets. Take a look at pathtoprofitacademy.com/summit. We'll also have that link in the show notes. Anything else you'd like to add, Minette?
Yeah, next episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking to Tony Wilkins. He's a friend of mine based in San Francisco, and he is a masterful networker and promoter and connector, especially for speakers, but in particular for small business owners. And he has a really unique perspective on networking, and especially for those of you that might be a little shy or timid or nervous about getting out of the house, I really encourage you to come and listen to our next podcast with Tony Wilkins.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, everybody.
I'm off to jury duty. Woohoo!
See ya.
Bye-bye.